The world we live in is a giant insane asylum, and we, the people, are crazy. This is the real truth. Check it. Whether we're aware of it or not, we're all members of society, bound to social norms and laws, participating and contributing to a culture and community. Though we may consider ourselves free, we're part of an institution, a system that to a great extent controls our decisions, actions, thoughts, and desires. We are physically free, meaning we're not locked behind bars or walls against our will, but we tend to choose to live that way anyway. There are other people who don't have that choice. People who have been deprived of their physical freedom and isolated from the rest of us in places like this, the Borda Psychiatric Hospital in Buenos Aires, Argentina. This is Alexis. He's in here because he was charged with a crime and also declared insane. Now he's basically on parole. He has to behave, or at least not get caught misbehaving, if he ever wants to get out of this place.
So it looks like a door, but really, it's a window to the freedom. You know, who says that that is the real door? And this is a monument, and who says that the monuments don't work for nothing? It works to give me the freedom, so check it. Easy. I'm gonna easy your brain. Whoa.
Now this would fall into the category of misbehaving.
And right now, I'm a serial killer free, you know what I mean? So, the state works for us many times. So I'm gonna give it back because it's much better. Many times staying here inside. There's more fun, more music. Today is Wednesday. Music time. Voila! Chinese acrobat. I'm still young for it.
The day before we shot this interview, I asked Alexis to think about how he wanted to tell his story.
Well,
It's okay. It's part of the job.
yeah. Well, I feel like, you know, you can take a piece of your life and make a beautiful legend with something stupid many times. And I feel, or I realize now that a lot of years of psychologists studying, you know, I defeat with just jumping a wall, you know, means nothing. And we go.
When I got there the next day, Alexis had a plan. He chose to tell his story in English, and he took me to a spot I had never been to before, behind the hospital morgue, where he and other patients who don't have permission to leave risk getting into big trouble for a brief taste of life on the other side.
That's the real wall between the freedom, the streets, your life, that you are there behind the camera. And this is, you know, the psychiatric institution, and the worst psychiatric institution in reputation. The Borda, you know, you say Borda in the streets, and I've been in the Borda, and people just runs away from your life. It's real sad what happened. And just look at this infrastructure, you know.
Why do you stay inside?
Because the law fucked me up, and I make a script because I'm a writer. So I'm gonna read it for you. It's easy. And it's called The Real Truth. Check it. Type machine writer. Just a few. The real truth. How did you want to be recalled? Easy. My beautiful porcelain skilled love doll was raped.
This was the first time I was hearing Alexis's real truth. The events that landed him in the Borda's prison for the criminally insane, and who knows how long behind these hospital walls.
So the charges, easy again. Death threat and insanity. I'm paying for it.
This is his side of the story. A confession. He prepared a script to read in English. Not all of the facts are clear, and some parts, frankly, don't make any sense at all. So I'll explain.
I am somebody which never broke the silence code. Never. I have really the knowledge.
A girl very close to Alexis was raped. He had a gun and wanted to take revenge on the guys that did it. He was caught by the police. Then he was charged with death threat and insanity. The details may be a bit fuzzy, but the moral of the story is clear. Alexis is a hopeless romantic.
Many times. I wanna live a happy woman beside my grave. Don't look at me like a hero, because there is only one man which can pay the price of the revenge, and that's me. Oh, when I'm dead and gone, I don't wanna a stone on my grave. I just wanna live a happy woman beside my tomb. And that's all, baby.
From the first day I met Alexis, I was surprised by how open he was with me. No topic was off limits, no question was too personal. We hit it off. I was anxious to hear about life in the insane asylum, and he was ready with endless philosophies on music, craziness, and life. He basically taught himself English, listening to rock music and referencing an old dictionary. Sometimes he uses words I've never heard of. Some may not even exist. But he gets his point across and is able to express how frustrating the mental health system can be.
There is no professionals, just, collaborators, and you cannot sustain mental health with that. Just forget it. It's like a broken dream, receive a good treatment, a good diagnostication. You are just a crippled when you get inside in here, and you go outside feeling that you are the same cripple. Nothing changed, really, nothing. And we were playing all the time in the night that we were like convicts.
Alexis leads a double life. When he escapes on Friday and Saturday nights to go out dancing, he doesn't tell people he's in the Borda.
When I get in, again, after a wild night, it's like a kind of sad thing, because I show to the people that nothing happens bad and nothing is wrong in my life. And again inside, it's like two faces. And this is real sad many times to show two faces. But, well, Alice Cooper says, when you got two faces, you're gonna forget one of the faces, which is the real one. You're gonna get mad. But I don't. I don't forget my faces. But it's sad. You got these faces, and you must face the doctor and says nothing happened last night I was sleeping. And you must face, the night, and the mirror ball and the chicks, and say, hey Alex, what are you doing? I'm still writing,
He may be in the Borda, but he is still writing. A lot. And this is where the magic happens.
Thank you.
Alexis is luckier than most patients. He has a family that cares about him, and his mom brought him this typewriter so he could write. But it's no ordinary typewriter. It's the magical machine Alexis Wilde Carrington Jambisi uses to connect with the outside world. Alexis uses this typewriter as his own brand of therapy, writing down the things he can't say out loud and working to make his dream a reality.
I want to be a writer. I want to be recorded like a writer, like, I don't know, Edgar Allan Poe or Salinger. I would love to be a famous writer, recognized that, like, oh, this guy talks about the real truths, but it's not tried to make, you know, or to change the world. He's talking about himself, and Alex, when he's writing, is a real confession. I think that my dreams is it's to walk on the street and that someone stops me and says, hey, I think that you are a real good writer, and help me, you know, a couple of words that you put together, and that's my dream. Make a couple of coins with it.
Alexis isn't proud of his reckless past, but he hopes that writing about his misadventures will help other people avoid making the same mistakes he made.
No trato de arreglar el mundo, sino trato de decir, bueno, yo puedo educar a alguien con el mal ejemplo. Le he dado la vuelta al mundo y encontré eso, ¿no? Le he dado la vuelta al mundo, no en 80 días, o la vuelta al día en 80 mundos, como escribió Cortázar. Entonces considero que puedo darle una mano a alguien, tengo una contribución para ofrecer, diciéndole, mira, nunca te tomes un LSD porque te vas a tirar al río, o nunca hagas esto porque, ¿entendés? Te va a pasar esta y te podés morir. O no uses una jeringa que ya haya sido usado por un compañero tuyo porque te vas a agarrar un SIDA que te vas a morir, ¿entendés? Así de crudo. Y creo que puedo ejemplificar con el mal ejemplo, valga la redundancia, como toda redundancia. Eso lo aprendí de Bukowski, que él es redundante y después vale mucho. Me parece eso, ¿entendés? Me parece que me puedo llegar a convertir en un referente, ¿no?, de algo positivo, haciéndome cargo de mis malos ejemplos.
While Alexis was in the penitentiary, he spent his days editing in his head what would later become 4 books recounting his life experiences. He spent almost half the time he was in prison in solitary confinement and faced brutal daily beatings, but he says he has no regrets.
Estaba en un bar con un revólver y entró la policía por una venganza que estaba por cobrar. Igual la primera en mi vida es no hay que matar a nadie, pero sí un buen disparo en la pierna le cabe a algunos, no, como una suerte de castigo, porque considero que la ley no lava el dolor de una persona, ¿no? Pero la venganza sí. Entonces sí, me hago cargo de ser vengativo. Es el gran dilema que tengo yo con todo esto que se llama sociedad, ¿no? Con leyes, normas, pautas y después la cultura. Pero bueno, pasó eso.
Writing his memoirs is his main pastime, but Alexis has another creative outlet. He's part of the Frente de Artistas del Borda, the Borda Artist Front, or Frente for short. Like he mentioned before, Wednesday is Music Day at the Frente, an independent organization that operates on the hospital grounds. The Frente uses art as a weapon, waking patients out of their institutionalized stupor and proving to people on the outside that there can be creativity and brilliance with mental suffering.
La existencia del manicomio exacerba la imagen siniestra de la locura, del sufrimiento mental. Yo creo que en la medida que el manicomio es el lugar apartado de la ciudad, es el lugar de encierro, es el lugar de segregación, es el lugar de incógnito, en general genera por desinformación en la gente como uno, en la cabecita de cada una de las personas, una imagen distorsionada, una imagen siniestra, entonces peligrosa. O sea, lo que se entiende del loco en la cabecita de una persona es que el loco es un tipo peligroso que debe estar encerrado y, si es posible, encadenado. Y eso lo genera el manicomio.
Alberto Saba started the Frente 27 years ago, and ever since, he and a group of pro bono collaborators have been using a plethora of artistic workshops that liberate patients by making them feel like people again. The goal is to break the stigma surrounding mental illness and open people's eyes to a different, better alternative. It's part of a movement called desmanicomialización, which is hard even for natives to pronounce. It literally means de-insane asylumization. In English, it's not much easier. We call it deinstitutionalization.
El sufrimiento mental es una enfermedad más que, bien contenida, no genera esos signos de imagen peligrosa.
Ever recently celebrated his 51st birthday. He's been in the Borda since he was a teenager. He's been abandoned his whole life here, but he rarely lets people see him sad. Ever is a star, and the show must go on. Deinstitutionalization does not mean closing down mental hospitals and leaving people in the streets. It's about creating acceptance of mental illness in the community, because it could happen to your mother or cousin or you, and nobody deserves to spend their life in an institution.
Este hospital no consiste en tirarlo abajo como piensan muchos, sino hacer de esto un hospital público, donde todo el barrio de Barranca venga y tenga vengan niños, vengan mujeres embarazadas, vengan ancianos y se vengan como un hospital público, y donde haya problemas, donde haya gente que tenga padecimientos mentales y que venga y también sea tratada, pero no un lugar donde acá están los locos masculinos, ahí están las locas femeninas, ahí están los locos adolescentes y allá están los viejos, todos depósitos, porque en realidad no se busca curar, se busca amontonarlos y depositarlos en un lugar. No es que...
And while these people struggle to hold on to their dignity, other, much more powerful madmen live a different reality.
Es decir, si vos decís, si desde la más alta autoridad, que son los presidentes, para abajo, están todos involucrados, y bueno, ¿qué podés pensar? ¿Qué parte está, diríamos, libre de la locura? Todo es una locura. Es decir, al contrario, vos terminás viendo que los que están acá son, digamos, perejiles. Porque ¿qué hicieron? No sé, tuvieron un desequilibrio, son bipolares, no sé, tuvieron un problema amoroso y tuvieron una crisis. Pobre gente, sin guita, sin familia, y terminaron acá cronificados y se comieron 25 años y lo sacaron con los pies para adelante. Y se murieron acá adentro, Y los otros están disfrutando de paraísos en la Bahamas, con cuentas fabulosas
Argentina is a mecca for people interested in psychology. Argentines love it. You could even say they're crazy about it. It's the country with more psychologists per capita than anywhere else in the world, with nearly 5 times more per person than in the US. Sigmund Freud is as revered here as legendary footballer Diego Maradona. The paradox is that while it's all the rage for people to work through their neuroses with a shrink, mental illness is still a taboo.
Las medicaciones que le dan acá es la misma medicación que se toma ahí afuera. Es decir, vos vas a agarrar cualquier ejecutivo, cualquier tipo que va a laburar, seguramente toma Lexotanil, seguramente toma Valium para dormir, toma antidepresivos, te toman una mezcla de cosas que lo toman, pero el tipo es un alto ejecutivo, un gerente, y entonces está como sociabilizado. Eso está bien.
Activities that can be stressful for anybody, like finding a job and getting an apartment, are almost impossible for people who have been branded with the label crazy. And when it comes to relationships, if you thought dating was hard, try having to explain to a guy or girl that you snuck out from a psychiatric hospital and have to be back before the morning rounds.
My greeting card is, hello, I'm a crazy motherfucker in an institution. Don't you want to get inside of my life? What can I do? Everything that I tell is, is doubt. Is true, it's not true. Let's gonna check his clinic story. You know what I mean? There is a prejudice all the time. All the time there is a prejudice. Sucks. This life sucks in here.
Here in the Borda, many patients without criminal charges have permission to come and go during the day and could easily escape and never return. But where would they go?
La puerta está abierta, si te querés ir andate, pero después vas a volver al toque, porque ahí afuera es donde realmente está la locura.
Daniel lives on the other side of the wall, but he spends a good deal of time inside the Borda. He first heard about the Frente when, like a third of Argentina's population, he was seeing a therapist. Now he runs the journalism workshop and is a regular guest on a mental health radio show.
Si usted hace caso omiso de nuestra sonrisa desdentada, de las contracturas, de las babas, encontrará, le juro, un ser humano.
Institutions can be really horrible places, especially corruptly run, understaffed, overpopulated, abuse-ridden mental hospitals like the Borda.
Si no puede avanzar, si acaso le dan náuseas o mareos, no se vaya. Antes, por lo menos, deje los cigarrillos.
Medication overdoses to make patients easier to deal with are a constant. Facilities are falling apart and filthy. Finding a doctor or nurse when you need one is almost laughable.
Tenés que pelear por tener tu tratamiento, por tu derecho de tratamiento. Y me parece bajísimo. Bueno, ya lo escribí miles de veces. El Borda es para mí es el lugar, el hospital con más mala reputación de la Argentina, tal vez de Sudamérica. Porque vos hablas del Borda y ya estás hablando de problemas, no de soluciones, no de un hospital que te enferma, no de un hospital que te cura, ¿entendés? De un hospital que te cronifica, no de un hospital que te rehabilita. De un hospital que te hace pasar hambre, sed, frío.
It's enough to drive anyone completely mad, and many chronic patients look like they've lost touch with reality, talking to themselves and wandering the grounds. But in their minds, they've broken free from their physical constraints and seem to have figured out a way to make sense of the insanity that surrounds them.
Porque esas personas que escuchan voces y hablan solos y van caminando por el parque sienten que se pueden comunicar con una persona que está a millones de kilómetros de distancia y sienten a su vez y están convencidos de que están arreglando el mundo entero, ¿entendés? Y que todo el mundo les hace caso, ¿entendés? Como una suerte de dictador, entre comillas, que está en un atril dando un gran discurso y todo el mundo a partir de ese discurso cambia. Entonces siempre digo, cuando veo desde la ventana, ¿no? Como Lord Vader, que miro así el parque, con un sentido de pertenencia, ¿no? De lo que es el Borda, digo, mira, ahí va otro que está arreglando el mundo. Qué bueno sería un día que le hagan caso, a ver qué pasa, ¿viste? Pero yo en la esquizofrenia descubrí mucho eso, que teóricamente el loco está dando un discurso de cómo debería ser la verdadera moralina, la verdadera cosa, ¿entendés? Y bueno, es toda una pasión que no pudo alargar ese loco X, y esa pasión le estalló en el cerebro, le estalló en la adrenalina, le estalló en la neurona, y todo ese shock emocional le causa la pérdida de la realidad.
What would happen if we actually started listening to those guys walking around fixing the world? So some patients weren't able to express their passions, their ideas. But what if they were given the tools they needed to do so? History shows countless links between insanity and creative brilliance.
In real deep, you know, crazy means that you have some kind of artistical expression. That's what I realize now.
But until deinstitutionalization happens, most of the creative minds in the Borda will never get a chance to share their talents with society. 90% of inmates in Argentine psychiatric institutions would potentially be eligible for release, but have no family to turn to and no community or government support. Not to mention, there are tons of financial interests in the business of crazy. So it's no wonder many patients never find out about alternatives like the Frente.
Sí, en vez de real truth, esto sería de real shame. El loco cuanto más loco es un buen negocio para el doctor. Solamente con decir que es un buen negocio, que el loco sea loco y que sea indefenso en su locura. Les da terror que 4 o 5 locos se agrupen y empiecen a pensar. Porque el loco estará loco, tendrá las ideas desordenadas, pero tiene ideas. Tiene ideas y tiene un instinto de supervivencia. Yo creo que a un loco lo pones en una guerra y sobrevive más que un médico.
Here in Buenos Aires, there's even a law in place, Law 448, that would make mental hospitals like the Borda illegal. But there are lots of people working hard to make sure that doesn't happen.
El manicomio es un gran negocio para mucha gente. Generalmente primero para los laboratorios, porque una persona internada consume entre 60 y 70% más de medicación que una persona en tratamiento ambulatorio. Entonces, en un hospital como este, o como este y el Moyano, que son casi 3.000 personas, que consuman 8 o 10 pastillas más por día, son alrededor de 30.000 pastillas menos diarios que un laboratorio dejaría de consumir.
In here, just you must pay with your body, and outside you must pay with just money. But in here, money means nothing, and your body is everything. You know, when you have a bad behavior, you have to pay. You know, with an injection and a syringe and a tranquilizer. And outside, you just take out your wallet and put the money on the desk.
Freedom isn't something you can buy with money. It doesn't come in a pill, and it's not just jumping over a wall. It's different for every person. But whether you live in a mental institution or not, the idea is the same. To break the routine, to stop being puppets yanked around by unseen puppet masters, to start thinking and being human with all the good, bad, ugly, and crazy that comes with it. Maybe if we'd start listening to what they have to say, we could finally figure out how to change the world.
I am dreaming now. I will travel around the time and kill Hitler, and I will travel around and around and around and around in the time, and I will change the moment that the human being discovered the wheel, you know. Because becomes the mechanical animals that we are now. So I will say, okay, you got the wheel, so forget it, man. Live in the nature is amazing. Let's gonna build our houses in the middle of the nature. Don't screw a tree, don't screw that, don't screw, you know, a sap, don't screw, you know, a river. Just forget it, man. Forget about the wheel. I will do that.
It's amazing how a little bit of creativity and encouragement can revive the human spirit, fighting against the damaging effects of the institution. People who have been shut up, ignored, and deprived of freedoms can transform into artists. Here you'll find singers, circus acts, even politicians. As human beings, we need outlets to express ourselves, to maintain our sanity. Whether we're trapped in mental hospitals or in some other institution we've grown so used to we forget it's there, every person is unique in their own craziness. If you can embrace it and use it for good, it's a powerful thing. In my time here, I've learned that we are all the same. We enjoy the company of other human beings and hold on to the little things that make us feel happy and comfortable. Here in the Borda, people connect with each other by sharing their prized possessions.
¿Dónde está la radio? Ahí está.
Acá está la radio.
¿Qué escuchan?
Clásico. Se vuelven locos por la radio porque es el momento de pasarla bien y despejarse un poco de los árboles. Se toma mate, se escucha música, se cambia un poco de hierba por cigarro. Si no tenés cigarro, cambia un poco de hierba por cigarro.
The ubiquitous tea-like beverage is an Argentine staple, and many patients in the Borda continue the tradition, carrying mate in a kettle of hot water around with them as if it were a part of their body.
Es la baliza en donde vos te detenés a encontrar una historia maravillosa de vida a veces.
Like so many things in this nutty world, the idea of crazy is completely relative. It's determined by every culture's values, religions, ideals. Your idea of crazy may be another person's idea of normal, and to someone else, the way you live probably seems completely nuts. But like Alexis says, it doesn't mean nothing.
There is a lot of good hearts with insanity in here. My insanity is salter, and I don't have a good heart. There is a lot of people which is real mad and real crazy, like Ever, you know, Ever is a patient Ever. He, you know, don't have syntaxes and all the time he's real crazy, but he got a greatest heart. He's real good, you know, got good feelings all the time for the people. It doesn't mean nothing. Doesn't mean nothing.
Oh, no.
Let's get the hell out of here.
Okay.
I hate fans.
Around the world, 25% of people will develop one or more mental disorders at some stage in their lives. Today, 450 million people are suffering from a mental illness. But all of us are touched by it, and nobody is immune. In our communities, our families, and in our heads, there is no cement wall to protect us from craziness, insanity, or whatever you want to call it. We are all living life on that fine line, on the border. But if you let yourself get close enough to the edge, you'll be able to see the real truth. The line doesn't exist. We are all crazy. The world is crazy. Check it.
Te digo sí, me quiero ir porque tengo una vida que me está esperando. No me importa si es buena o es mala ya. Tiene sus pros y sus contras. Me esperan los sábados a la noche para seguir escribiendo. Me esperan las nuevas generaciones para seguir escribiendo. NA me espera, aunque no lo debo decir porque es NA, porque son narcóticos anónimos. A nivel novias es como que aparecen. Creo que tanto en la locura como en el amor la belleza la encuentro en el entendimiento. Nunca falta una mujer con la cual me entienda. Pero me espera eso, creo que me espera mi vida y creo que va a estar bien. Que esta vez every little thing gonna be alright. Así que me parece que vamos a ir por ese lado.
¿Cuándo salís?
Posiblemente fin de año, un poquito más, 1, 2, 3 meses más. Si no me dan el alta, no me voy a ir con las manos vacías. Va a ser una cosa ya más ambulatoria, más onda así, pero a mí me das calle. Yo quiero calle. Va a ser así.